go. It's the Morning Brew, and Amber Hendren and I'm Larry Aarons, all set to go the second half of our show. This part of our show is brought to you by Albuquerque Arts and Entertainment. They've formed an alliance with a new free newspaper called ABQ Free Press. You'll get the same arts and entertainment coverage with the same fine writers, but you're also going to get a healthy dose of investigative journalism, know-how journalism, and it's going to be a great collaboration with ABQ Arts and Entertainment and ABQ Free Press. So we want to welcome them and congratulate them on their new collaboration. So Amber, we have a couple of special guests here, and I'm excited about this.
We do. Actually, we have Craig Newbill and Ann Bikey. Yeah. Ann is an actress and a Chautauqua performer, and Craig is the executive director of the New Mexico Humanities Council. Hi, guys.
Well,
good morning.
Both of you. Good morning. Ann, you look great.
Well, thanks.
Or should I call you Rosie?
Rosie,
right?
please.
You're Rosie right now.
Got to keep it in the...
Yeah, you look just like the iconic poster that says, "We can do it," from World War II.
That's Rosie.
Yeah, there she is, and with the big muscle and everything. Speak, if you will, about becoming this character and talking about how you assume this identity when you perform.
First of all, Rosie has always been of great interest to me, but I found out my grandmother was a Rosie.
Really?
Later in her 90s, I was doing an oral history with her, and I discovered she was a Rosie. So I read up on Rosie, found out all about her, found out some very, very interesting things, and then found my costume and feel really comfortable in who Rosie is as I portray her and talk about all of the great things that she did for the war effort.
Indeed. Craig, what's the Humanities Council involvement in this portrayal, in this production?
Well, we created the program in New Mexico in 1988, and since that date we've averaged 300 of these programs around the state every year. We hit practically every county in the state every year. So we sponsor. These folks are independent contractors, so they keep their own bookings and schedules. We put them on our website. We make sure their payments are made, that the sponsors make the appropriate announcements. And it's not just enough to do the presentation. We want the scholars to engage the audience in a dialogue, question and answers, and provide those learning opportunities from the program.
Now, not too long ago, there was a wonderful PBS program about the women of America that stepped forward during World War II, and I'd never seen it portrayed quite the way it was portrayed. It made the case that the war probably could not have been won if the women of America didn't step in and do what they did during those war years, as emblematic of Rosie the Riveter.
That's absolutely right. There were so many men at war that all of the military work and the civilian work needed to be done by women. And not only that is the child labor laws were suspended so that I don't want to say children, but younger people, mostly in their teens, could come to work in a lot of jobs that were formerly held by men.
Rosie was a symbol of the woman who worked on the assembly lines making airplanes, making tanks, and all of that. But the show also talked about all the women that worked in ammunition factories with extremely dangerous work that went on, and they did it without fail, without faltering.
Absolutely. There were a lot of dangerous jobs that women worked in. And as a result of women working in a lot of these jobs, there were safety processes put in place, safety guards and that sort of thing. So that was kind of the start of helping there to be some oversight into safety measures in factories and that sort of thing. But indeed, very dangerous working conditions for both men and women.
Yes, no doubt about it.
So Ann, is there anybody we might know who was a Rosie?
Oh, yes. This is a fabulous story. Norma Jean Baker Doherty, the woman who is known as Marilyn Monroe, started working in the radio plane factory in Van Nuys, California. And interestingly enough, she made parts for unarmed drones that
Interesting.
were being used, and I'm not sure what the use of those were at that time, but a photographer came in to take a picture of women on the line, and there was Norma Jean. He took a picture of her for Yank magazine, and she became famous.
How about that?
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to get discovered, Larry.
What also happened during that time is that this was the first time women really stepped out of traditional homemaking roles in that period of time to go to work and work hard. You know, a grinding schedule. Those factories were humming 24/7, and
Absolutely.
women were suddenly thrown into this, and they went willingly to do what they had to do to help the country.
They did, and they wanted to help the war effort, but they also discovered that they had a camaraderie in their coworkers, with their coworkers. They were making their own paycheck,
Yeah.
and they were able to spend that when they had time because they were working a lot of hours. And as my grandmother told me, the day the war was over, they lost their jobs.
Really?
So some of them were able to stay on, but for a majority of the women, they lost their jobs and men came back in to take those.
So we actually found the Norma Jean picture here of Miss Marilyn.
Oh, there she
There
is
she
working.
is.
Wow, how about that? That's the photo that some talent scout spotted her. So when you're performing as Rosie, I'm curious, what do you like? Are you spunky? Are you resolute? What is Rosie like?
Rosie's still in process now. Rosie has not actually started to perform yet because I was just accepted into the Chautauqua
Yeah.
program
How are you
late
gonna
last
play
year.
her?
I'm going to play her as strong and spunky and all of the above, and some of it depends on the audience too. Because if I'm working with an audience that might know who Rosie is, who are very familiar with
Sure.
her, it's very organic, as a lot of acting is, of course. You just let it flow, whatever happens. And in terms of Rosie, I see her as you're right, very spunky, very strong, very determined. She got grease under her fingernails, but she loved to wear lipstick.
Yeah,
So-
she's a lady too.
She's a lady too, yes, absolutely. So whatever unfolds is the way it happens.
I love it.
So what other Chautauqua have you been involved in?
I
Characters?
portray Margaret Sanger, who is pioneer in women's health care, and also Rachel Carson, who was very instrumental in bringing environmentalism into our language and was instrumental in the ban of DDT and wrote Silent Spring.
Well, we still need her.
We do.
It
incredible.
seems like I saw in the news that several women, Rosies, if you will, just got honored in Washington for their service to the country, and it was a symbol of all the many thousands of women who helped out during those years.
I had not read about that, but their Rosies are, unfortunately, there are not a lot of Rosies
Right.
still around,
I
or they're
know.
very old, they're in their late 80s and 90s, so we're losing a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, my father's a World War II vet, and I talk with him all the time about those years and what it meant and what it was like for the country, both, you know, for the men serving overseas and for the families at home. It wasn't easy, but they made it work, and the war definitely couldn't have been won without the Rosies out there that helped out.
Very instrumental in making it happen.
Great to meet you, Ann. It's
Thank
great to
you.
meet you, Craig.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for bringing her down and sharing this story with us. And I'm glad you sponsor a Chautauqua series.
It's an honor, and it's just another part of the unfolding history of women's rights. As they were meeting in
Indeed.
Washington last week, the Congress rejected equal pay for equal work for women. So looks like we still have a ways to go.
What is up?
Thank you, Craig.
This portion
Craig.
of the show brought to you by ABQ Arts and Entertainment Magazine, now collaborating with ABQ Free Press. We thank them for bringing us this segment. We'll be right back.